Sorry, everybody. JHL, are you there?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Great. I'll let you go. Thanks for joining us.
Definitely. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm JHL. I'm a core contributor at a project called Serum, and I'm here to talk about Serum's vision. So let's start off with a little bit about Serum. So Serum is a protocol for delivering underlying liquidity infrastructure to decentralized applications built on Solana. So let's dive into that a little bit. What does that actually mean? So Serum is a decentralized exchange on the Solana blockchain, and it's based on the central limit order book model. So as you can see here on the screen, we have this central limit order book, and this is the same trading experience that traders would have on, for example, Binance, FTX, or even places like NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. So Serum brings that same trading experience on chain with the central limit order book. And it does so in a way that is fully composable with other applications on the blockchain, allowing them to build unique primitives on top of Serum's order book. So here we can see in the graphic, there's on an order book, there's both makers and takers. So the makers are placing orders here on the order book, and then takers take liquidity from the order book. And so this is the model that Serum runs with, and this is the model that powers almost all the DeFi infrastructure on Solana today. So zooming out a little bit, what Serum's goal in the long term looks like is to really bring 1 billion users on chain and to host over $10 trillion of on-chain value. The central limit order book as a financial primitive, in traditional finance outside of the world of blockchain, really powers almost all financial markets. Everything from spot markets to futures, options, and so many more. And by bringing this central limit order book experience on chain in a fully composable way, which has not been done by any other decentralized exchange, Serum is really providing this unique value for other projects to come onto Serum and then compose with the central limit order book. So, Serum's native DEX itself offers spot trading built in, but then other teams can come onto Serum, compose with the DEX, and build things like futures, perps, options, and much, much more. And so when we think about, how Serum scales going into the future, we're really thinking about, okay, what are these financial primitives that other people can build that mirror this, real world traditional finance and bring them on chain. And that's how, we see it scaling in the future. So this is just sort of, a glimpse into sort of a long-term vision of Serum. So, you know, when we think about the key components of Serum, you know, there's a few different parts. So there's Solana, and Solana is, one of the fastest blockchains and cheapest blockchains out there. And so Solana is really core to the Serum experience. In order to be able to market make on Serum, for example, you need to be able to place your orders on the order book. When prices move, you need to be able to cancel your orders and then replace them at a different limit price. And this happens, in traditional financial markets hundreds of times a second, thousands of times a second. And so in order to be able to support that same level of trading activity, Serum needs to operate at a speed and at low costs that are only enabled uniquely by the Solana blockchain. And so, at the heart of Serum is really the Solana architecture. The next sort of ingredient here is the on-chain central limit order book. So, like I mentioned, Serum is uniquely positioned as a decentralized exchange in that it has this on-chain central limit order book. Many other decentralized exchanges opt for a model called an automated market maker. And, there are pros and cons between the two, but essentially the on-chain central limit order book mirrors much of what traditional financial markets operate as. And so we're bringing that entirely on chain in a completely composable manner. And that's sort of the second ingredient behind Serum and what we think will enable it to grow to massive size. The third one, we call liquidity at prices that matter. And what we basically mean here is capital efficiency. So because Serum, it has individual orders on the order book, market makers can place their capital on the book at the prices that they want to execute at, and only those prices, right? And so when you compare this to the more traditional decentralized exchange model, the automated market maker, in those pools, when the LPs of the automated market maker place their capital into the pool, the liquidity is not, they don't specify where the liquidity shows up, um, like in a very precise manner. And so because of that, it does not lend itself to having the same level of capital efficiency that Serum provides. And so this is really the third ingredient that we think that, will make Serum successful in the long run. And then the final ingredient is the trading interfaces. So, at the heart of the trading experience is really the user interface. Every user, when they're using a decentralized exchange, most retail users and many institutional users, they're using like a trading interface, right? And so when we thought about, how Serum can sort of scale that out in a scalable manner, being the decentralized exchange it is, what we decided to do is actually offer the a GUI rebate. So what this means is the graphical user interface that's hosting the DEX actually gets a portion of the trading fees of the users that are using that interface to trade on Serum. So because Serum is just, a contract that sits on the blockchain, anyone can use it. And because of that, anyone can build a user interface for it. So, it's not a centralized product. So there's not just one place you can go to trade on Serum. Anyone can create a website and plug that website into the contract that Serum hosts on the blockchain and interact with Serum in that manner. And so because of that, we really try to enable a multitude of different trading interfaces to exist, and we incentivize them through this rebate. So if I could go out tomorrow, host a new trading interface for Serum, and all the volume that's pumped through that trading interface, I receive some amount of the fees that go through that. And so in that way, we think that, it creates a competitive environment for people to create new trading interfaces for Serum, and they'll be rewarded for doing so. And so that's the sort of fourth key component that we see as part of sort of Serum's long-term success. And all of these components combine to create what we feel is a centralized exchange-like trading experience. And so it mimics, like I said, FTX, Binance, and even, traditional financial exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, entirely on chain. So yeah, like I've been mentioning before, Serum is based on the order book, and this offers like a number of different benefits from both, its capital efficiency as well as its familiarity to institutional users that are used to traditional financial markets. And then actually one thing that I do want to touch on more here is actually its flexibility. So, compared to other decentralized exchange models such as the AMM, the order book is particularly flexible in that it supports a wide range of different financial products to be traded on it out of the box. So, there's a spot markets, but then, when you also get into things, for example, like options or even, prediction markets and things like that, the typical AMM primitive does not lend itself well to these kind of financial products. And so in general, you have the normal AMM for spot markets. And then, if you want to support perps, you need something slightly more complicated and complex to support that. And then if you want to try and support options and so on and so forth, each of these things under the automated market maker model generally become very difficult, or if it is possible, they require very complex primitives to support. Whereas the order book sort of works out of the box, not just for spot markets, but all these kinds of exotic derivatives as well. You don't need to change the underlying mechanics of the order book itself to support these. And in that way, the order book is a very flexible primitive for scaling out, not just from spot markets and perp markets, but also to, bring that whole sort of traditional finance experience on chain. Cool. So now we went over a little bit of like, what Serum is, how Serum works. Let's dive into the ecosystem, right? And how we sort of emphasize that composability element of Serum. So yeah, like we have this like sort of puzzle piece of Serum, and we really see Serum as like this Lego, right? In the first slide, I introduced it as the underlying liquidity infrastructure for the rest of the ecosystem. Serum is sort of, this puzzle piece, this Lego for other teams to build on top of. So, one example here is the borrow lending protocol, right? So if you imagine you have this traditional, spot order book, there's no, margining capabilities or anything of that nature, and then you pair it with the borrow lending protocol, all of a sudden you enable spot margin trading, right? And we see protocols like Mango Markets enable this. And so, you have the borrow lending protocol. If someone wants to, have like 2x long exposure to Sol, for example, they put their Sol into the borrow lending protocol. They can borrow USDC against that and then buy additional Sol exposure on Serum. And this can all be wrapped together because Serum is on chain, and its entire central limit order book infrastructure is on chain. It's fully composable, and these two sort of constructs can be composed together in a way that if you were to compare to, for example, centralized exchange like Binance or FTX, it's not possible, right? Like I couldn't create my own sort of primitive and then have that trading on FTX. I couldn't create my own primitive and like sort of compose that with FTX in a completely permissionless way. But on chain, you can, and that's sort of what one of Serum's core value adds over the more its more centralized counterparts. Um, and so you can imagine, not just sort of spot margin, but you can also create a futures trading platform on Serum, right? So we see, for example, 01 protocol, they've created perpetual futures. And these trade on the Serum order book, and they're able to, leverage the order book infrastructure to create unique products. And recently they've also created a more crypto native product called Power Perpetuals, which gives you like sort of squared exposure to certain underlyings. And so, all these sort of more exotic products that anyone wants to create, they can go on Serum and create them, which is really cool, right? Nobody can go, like you can't just go to, Binance and say, hey, I want to create this new product, so I'm going to like leverage your existing finance infrastructure and just launch my own product. But on Serum you can, and so that's really like what we see one of Serum's core value adds as. Um, and so because of that, Serum has sort of fostered this ecosystem of composing applications on the blockchain. And over time, these are just going to further compose with Serum and also further compose with each other in a way that we think is going to produce a very vibrant ecosystem. And so, just to call out some of the projects that have already sort of composed with Serum and are already growing this ecosystem, we have these projects already building on us, and we want to foster. The goal is to foster many, many more in the future. Also, in addition to composing on chain, like I mentioned before, it's possible for projects to create their own trading interfaces for Serum. So here we see the Bonfida trading interface for Serum. And like I mentioned, it's totally possible for any team to come on the order book, create create their own website and then come on chain, create, their own infrastructure for connecting to that smart contract on chain and then launch a user interface. And in this way, they don't even need to create, any smart contract of their own. They can, create products that compose the Serum just entirely on the web. And this is another example. They can create a more unique user interfaces, so they don't need to have the traditional sort of trading view interface. They can create like a more swap oriented interface. And so, yeah, you can sort of leverage Serum's underlying liquidity, for example, for derivatives, deeper AMM liquidity. Like if you want to create an AMM that composes on top of Serum, we see like Radium and Atrix do this. It enables like a whole host of different applications. And yeah, like we think that all these different applications downstream can be leveraged in various ways, right? Like we see sort of like all these different downstream financial products, right? Play to earn, property rights, digital collectibles, and internally many of these protocols need to trade different assets, right? They need to convert one asset to another, and so we see like Serum and its ecosystem kind of downstream enabling all these unique use cases on the blockchain. Great. Now I want to dive a little bit into like our future roadmap and how we see Serum evolving as time goes on. Again, Serum always starts and ends with its ecosystem. It provides this amazing liquidity infrastructure for everyone else to compose on top of. And so, what like the major metric that we track sort of Serum success by is its ecosystem. So to that end, we're launching like a new Serum order book. It's called Serum Core, also known as the Asset Agnostic Order Book, the AOB. And this will essentially allow developers to implant custom functionality into the order book that occurs whenever a trade occurs or whenever events occur on the order book. And so this will just enable a new level of flexibility within Serum, in which they can do their own sort of internal accounting and other custom functionality on the order book in ways that were previously not possible. So you can think of these as sort of like extensions to the actual Serum product itself. And so again, basically this is like tapping into that composability element of Serum, and that's what we're really doubling down on in the future. The next aspect of Serum that we want to grow and that on our roadmap is decentralization and community empowerment. So we recently launched the Serum DAO, which is a DAO governed by the SRM token, the native token of the Serum protocol. And basically, the reason why we want to do this is both to decentralize the protocol, but also further empower our users, right? We want our users to have a say in how the protocol evolves. We have this huge SRM token treasury, and we want them to allocate this in various ways towards community projects that can help grow the Serum ecosystem, right? Like when we think about growing the ecosystem, there needs to be someone that, fosters that growth. And we think that the DAO can do that through leveraging the, collective power of the community to make decisions around where Serum, allocates its treasury towards, how Serum updates its fee structure to incentivize teams to compose with it, and other related DEX parameters. And so, decentralization is another really big focus for us. And the Serum DAO is sort of like our step into doing so. Great. Now, like another key item on the Serum roadmap is institutional adoption and capital. So in the DeFi landscape today, DeFi, it's definitely grown quite a bit, but it still has a lot of room to grow when it comes to institutional adoption. Institutions today, they're often, unable to use DeFi applications, generally due to regulatory reasons and other things. And so when we think about institutional adoption, we both we obviously regard it as very important for Serum's growth, especially with Serum's emphasis on bringing the sort of traditional financial market central limit order book primitives on chain, but also just for growing like the volume and also the community behind Serum. It's important to bring in all kinds of players, not just retail but also institutions. And so what our strategy here is really about is actually bringing some of the regulatory infrastructure in the real world on chain. So what does this mean? This means we're working with KYC and other regulatory institutions to provide on-chain identity frameworks that will allow different agents to be permissioned to trade on Serum order books. So, if a big institutional trading firm wants to get on Serum, but they're concerned that they only want to trade against counterparties that have passed a certain level of compliance or KYC, they can trade on this permissioned order book. This order book will every agent on this order book will have to pass the KYC from one of our partners, and so in this way we can actually foster like an institutional trading base of users on Serum. And so, this is something that we haven't seen many other or really any other DEXs really try and foster in a big way. And we think that this is, a huge area of growth for Serum by bringing, those KYC providers from the real world to post their data on chain for us to, permission various agents to trade on sort of isolated order books that are going to be meant for institutional traders. And so, when we lay out sort of our roadmap for doing so, we think of onboarding CeFi partners, right? So centralized finance partners who we want to aggressively onboard them, the kind of trading firms that are used to trading on centralized exchanges, or even just, trading firms that are big players in traditional financial markets. We also want to, roll out market making incentive programs in a decentralized manner that'll allow those participants to, see value in the DEX upfront and sort of come over that hump of initial adoption, and then also optimizing sort of the RPC server performance of DEX operations. So what this means is like providing the technological infrastructure that these players are used to in traditional financial markets to connect to the exchange and interact with the exchange in a way that's understandable to, the average sort of, NASDAQ trading firm or NYSE trading firm. We want them to, feel like Serum is just like another exchange from their point of view, and that they can use it in all the standard ways. And so the technical aspect of that is also a big piece there. So yeah, that's basically how we see Serum growing in the future, and we've already fostered this amazing ecosystem, and we just want to see it grow further and further every day. So yeah, just sort of like our final call out. If you're interested in building on Serum Core or permission markets on Serum for institutional adoption, feel free to reach out to us if you want to partner with us in various ecosystem projects on Serum. Again, reach out to us. And finally, if you want to participate in the Serum DAO, right, the Serum decentralized organization, to help make key decisions about Serum's future growth. Again, yeah, we'd love to talk with you. Great. That's all for us.
Thanks, Jai Cho.